The email notification lit up my phone during my lunch break at the engineering firm. Subject: property transfer complete, 847 Oakmont Drive. My hands went numb. That was my grandmother's house. The house she left to me in her will. The house my parents had been living in rent-free for the past 3 years while I worked in Seattle. I opened the attachment with shaking fingers. Sale price, $340,000. Sellers, Robert and Patricia Morrison. My parents. Buyers, Cascade Property Group LLC. Closing date, yesterday. My name appeared nowhere on the document. I read it 3 times, certain I was misunderstanding something. But the words stayed the same. My name is Alex Morrison. I'm 29 years old, a structural engineer, and apparently, I'd just been robbed by my own parents. I closed my laptop slowly, picked up my phone, and walked to the parking lot. I didn't trust myself to stay inside around people. The Seattle rain was coming down hard, but I barely felt it. I pulled up my grandmother's will on my phone. Clear as day, I leave my property at 847 Oakmont Drive to my granddaughter, Alex Morrison, to be transferred upon my death. Grandma Helen died 3 years ago. The house should have been mine immediately. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, watching rain streak down the windshield. My phone buzzed constantly with work messages, but I ignored them. Finally, I called my parents' house. My mother answered on the 3rd ring. "Alex, honey." "What a nice surprise," she said, her voice bright and fake. "I got an interesting email today," I said, keeping my voice steady. "About a property sale." Silence. Then, "Oh. That. We were going to tell you." "When?" "After you spent all the money?" My voice was rising despite my efforts to stay calm. "Don't take that tone with me, young lady. Your father and I made a difficult decision for this family." Her voice had shifted to defensive, the tone she used when she knew she was wrong. "For the family? Or for Marcus?" I asked. "My brother. The golden child who could do no wrong." Another pause. "Marcus made some mistakes. He needed help. We couldn't just let him suffer the consequences." I laughed, a bitter sound even to my own ears. "How much did his gambling debt total this time?" "That's not your concern," my mother snapped. "Not my concern? You sold him my house without telling me." "That's fraud, Mom. That's a crime." My father's voice came on the line. He must have been listening on speaker. "Now Alex, let's not throw around legal terms. We're family. Your grandmother would have wanted us to help Marcus. Grandma specifically left that house to me, Dad. Not you. Not Marcus. Me." I was gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles were white. "You're being selfish," my mother cut in. "Your brother was in serious trouble. Dangerous people were threatening him. What were we supposed to do?" "Let him face consequences for once in his life," I said. "How much was it?" My father sighed. $280,000. He'd been playing online poker and sports betting. Got in over his head. I closed my eyes. My brother had blown through almost the entire value of my house. "Where are you planning to live now?" "We found a nice apartment in Spokane. 2 bedrooms. We move next month." My mother's voice was casual, like they'd just decided to downsize. "And you didn't think to discuss any of this with me? The actual owner?" "The house was in our names temporarily for tax purposes," my father said. "Your grandmother's lawyer suggested it during probate. We were supposed to transfer it to you, but then Marcus's situation happened, and we made a choice." "A choice to steal from me," I said flatly. "Don't be dramatic," my mother snapped. "We raised you. We fed you, clothed you, and paid for your college. Consider this payback." Something cold settled in my chest. "You got a loan from Grandma for my college. I have the paperwork. I paid it back in full 2 years ago." Every cent. Silence on the other end. They'd forgotten I kept records. I'd always been the responsible one, the one who paid attention to details. While Marcus partied through college on their dime and dropped out junior year, I'd worked 2 jobs and graduated with honors. "We need to go," my father said abruptly. "We'll talk about this later when you've calmed down." They hung up before I could respond. I sat in that parking lot until my supervisor called asking if I was okay. I told him I had a family emergency and needed the rest of the day off. He approved it immediately. I'd never taken a sick day in 3 years. I drove home to my small apartment in Capitol Hill and opened my laptop. First, I pulled up every document related to Grandma Helen's estate. She'd been sharp until the end, despite the cancer. Her will was clear and notarized. The house was mine. Next, I searched for property records. The transfer documents showed my parents' names as sellers, but I found the original probate filing. The house had been placed in a temporary trust with my parents as trustees, meant to transfer to me after 1 year. That year had passed 2 years ago. They'd never completed the transfer. They'd kept the house in the trust, which gave them legal authority to sell it. But they'd done so knowing it violated the will's intent and their duty as trustees. I called my friend Jennifer. She just finished law school and passed the bar. "I need a lawyer," I said when she answered. "A really good one." Jennifer listened to everything without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. "Alex, this is estate fraud and breach of fiduciary duty. Your parents could face serious legal consequences." "Good," I said. The word came out harder than I intended. "Are you sure you want to go down this road? They're your parents." I thought about every time they'd bailed Marcus out. The DUI they'd paid for. The credit card debt they'd covered. The rent they'd paid when he got evicted. The jobs they'd helped him get through connections, which he'd promptly lost. Meanwhile, I'd been told to be independent, to handle my own problems. "I'm sure," I said. Jennifer gave me the name of an estate attorney named Richard Chin. "He's aggressive and he wins. Tell him I referred you." I called Chen's office immediately. His secretary said he was booked for weeks, but when I mentioned Jennifer's name and explained the situation briefly, she put me on hold. 2 minutes later, Chin himself picked up. "Miss Morrison, tell me everything." I did. When I finished, he said, "I can take your case. But I need to know, how far are you willing to go?" "All the way," I said. Chin worked fast. Within 2 days, he'd filed a complaint with the probate court and a civil lawsuit against my parents for breach of fiduciary duty, fraud, and conversion. He also filed an emergency motion to freeze the sale proceeds. The judge granted the freeze. My parents couldn't touch the money from the house sale until the case was resolved. Chin called me with the news. "They're going to be angry," he warned. "Let them be," I said. My mother called that night. "What have you done?" she screamed into the phone. "We can't access the money. We already paid off Marcus's debt. Now we owe people." "You should have thought of that before you stole from me," I replied calmly. I'd been practicing that tone. "You ungrateful little," she caught herself. "Your brother could have been killed. These weren't nice people he owed money to. Then maybe he shouldn't have gambled money he didn't have." Again. This was Marcus's 3rd major gambling debt in 5 years. Each time, my parents had rescued him. My father took the phone. "Alex, please. Be reasonable. We're your parents. We made a mistake, but we can work this out." "You didn't make a mistake, Dad. You committed fraud. There's a difference." Marcus called next. I'd been expecting it. "You're really going to sue Mom and Dad? Over a house?" "Over my inheritance that you gambled away," I corrected. "This has nothing to do with you, Marcus." "Bullshit. This has everything to do with me." He sounded drunk. "You've always been jealous that Mom and Dad love me more." I laughed. I couldn't help it. Is that what you think? That I'm jealous? Marcus, they don't love you more. They enable you. There's a difference. They help me because I need it. You've always been fine on your own. I'm fine on my own because I had to be, I said. Because every time I needed something, they were too busy cleaning up your messes. You're a selfish bitch, he spat. And you're a 31-year-old man who still needs his parents to pay his debts. I guess we both have our problems. I hung up before he could respond. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Grandma Helen. She'd worked hard her whole life, saved carefully, and bought that house with her own money after Grandpa died. She'd wanted me to have it specifically because she knew I'd appreciate it and take care of it. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks later. Chin prepared me thoroughly. They'll try to paint you as greedy and ungrateful. Don't react. Stay calm. Let the facts speak. My parents arrived with their own lawyer, a guy named Donald Marsh who looked like he specialized in personal injury cases. Not estate law. First mistake. The judge, a woman named Sandra Reeves, reviewed the documents with a stern expression. She asked my parents' lawyer to explain why the trust property hadn't been transferred to me as specified in the will. Marsh stumbled through an explanation about tax implications and family needs. Judge Reeves cut him off. The will is clear. The trust was temporary. Why wasn't it executed? My father stood up. Your Honor, if I may. You may not, Judge Reeves said sharply. Sit down. Your lawyer speaks for you. Marsh tried again. The family had unexpected expenses. They intended to transfer the property after they sold it without the beneficiary's knowledge or consent? Judge Reeves interrupted. That's not how trusts work, counselor. I kept my face neutral, but inside, I was celebrating. Chin squeezed my arm slightly. We were winning. Judge Reeves set a trial date for 2 months out but made the asset freeze permanent until resolution. The sale proceeds will remain in escrow. If Miss Morrison prevails, the money will be awarded to her with interest. If the defendants prevail, which I find unlikely given these facts, they'll receive the funds. Outside the courtroom, my mother tried to approach me. Alex, please. We're going to lose our apartment deposit. We have nowhere to live. You have options, I said. You could get jobs. You could downsize. You could ask Marcus to help you for once. Marcus is broke. You know that. Then I guess he can't help you. Funny how that works. My father stepped forward, his face red. You're destroying this family over money. Is that what your grandmother would have wanted? Grandma wanted me to have that house, I said quietly. She told me so before she died. She said, Alex, this is for you. Make it a home. You took that from me. For Marcus. Again. For the first time, my father looked ashamed. But my mother just looked angry. You'll regret this, she said. No, I replied. I really won't. Over the next few weeks, Chin built our case methodically. He subpoenaed bank records showing the sale proceeds going directly to pay off Marcus's gambling debts. He found emails between my parents discussing the sale months before it happened, proving premeditation. He even tracked down the probate lawyer who'd set up the trust, who testified that he'd explicitly told my parents the property had to be transferred to me. They knew exactly what they were doing, Chin said during one of our meetings. This isn't a misunderstanding. This is theft. Meanwhile, my family launched a campaign to get me to drop the lawsuit. Aunts and uncles I barely knew called to tell me I was tearing the family apart. Cousins posted vague messages on social media about forgiveness and family loyalty. My mother's church friends sent me Bible verses about honoring your parents. I blocked them all. Jennifer came over with wine one night and found me crying on my couch. Second thoughts, she asked gently. No, I said, wiping my eyes. Just tired. I didn't think it would be this hard. Family stuff always is. She poured us both a glass. But you're doing the right thing. They stole from you. That doesn't change just because they're your parents. Marcus showed up at my apartment one night, pounding on the door. I looked through the peephole and saw him swaying slightly. Definitely drunk. I opened the door with the chain still on. What do you want, Marcus? To talk. Please. His voice cracked. Just let me explain. Against my better judgment, I let him in. He collapsed on my couch, reeking of whiskey. I'm sorry, he said. I'm so sorry, Alex. I messed up. I always mess up. Yes, you do, I agreed. I told them not to sell the house. I said we'd find another way. But they insisted. They said family takes care of family. He looked up at me with red eyes. I'm going to rehab. For real this time. I'm checking in next week. I've heard that before, I said. Marcus had been to rehab twice already. I know. But this time I mean it. I hit bottom. I lost everything. My girlfriend left. I got fired. I'm living in a motel. I have nothing left to lose. I sat down across from him. What do you want from me, Marcus? Nothing. I just wanted you to know that I know this is my fault. Not Mom and Dad's. Mine. And I'm sorry. After Marcus left, I sat alone in my apartment thinking about everything. Part of me wanted to believe he'd finally change. But I'd seen this pattern too many times before. Marcus would be sorry, promise to change, maybe even stay clean for a few months. Then something would happen, and he'd spiral again. And my parents would bail him out. They always did. The trial arrived faster than I expected. Chen was confident. We have everything we need. The paper trail is clear. The law is on your side. The courtroom was nearly empty except for my family and a few observers. My parents sat on the defense side, looking older than I remembered. Marcus wasn't there. He'd checked into rehab as promised. Chen presented our case methodically. Documents, testimony, timelines. Everything proved that my parents had knowingly violated their fiduciary duty by selling property that belonged to me. Their lawyer, Marsh, tried to argue that they'd acted in the family's best interest. That the debt collectors threatening Marcus were dangerous. That they'd planned to compensate me eventually. Judge Reeves wasn't buying it. The road to fraud is paved with good intentions, Mr. Marsh. Your clients violated the terms of the trust and sold property that wasn't theirs to sell. My mother started crying. My father stared straight ahead. The verdict came down clearly. Judge Reeves ruled entirely in my favor. The full sale proceeds, $340,000, would be transferred to me, plus interest and court costs. Additionally, my parents would be responsible for my legal fees, which totaled another $25,000. This was a clear breach of fiduciary duty, Judge Reeves said. The defendants knowingly and willfully violated the terms of the trust for personal reasons. While the court understands their desire to help their son, that doesn't justify theft from their daughter. My mother sobbed openly. My father put his arm around her. I felt nothing. Maybe that made me cold, but they'd made their choice. Outside the courthouse, Chen shook my hand. Complete victory. The money should transfer within a week. Thank you, I said. My parents stood by their car, waiting. I knew I had to face them eventually. I walked over slowly. Are you happy now? My mother asked through tears. You've destroyed us. You destroyed yourselves, I replied quietly. I just held you accountable. We're your parents, my father said. His voice was broken. We gave you life. We raised you. How can you do this to us? You stole from me. You chose Marcus over me. Again. How could you do that to me? Neither of them had an answer. My father opened the car door for my mother, helped her inside. Before getting in himself, he turned back to me. "I hope you can live with this," he said. "I can," I replied. "Can you?" He didn't answer. They drove away. The money transferred to my account 5 days later. $347,892 after interest. I stared at the number on my screen for a long time. This was supposed to be a house. A home. My inheritance from a grandmother who loved me. Now it was just money, payment for being betrayed by my own family. Chin called to confirm the transfer. "What will you do now?" "I'm not sure yet," I admitted. But I was lying. I knew exactly what I was going to do. I'd found out through a cousin that my parents had used their last bit of savings to put down deposits on that apartment in Spokane. They were supposed to move in 2 weeks. But without the house money they'd been counting on, they couldn't afford first month's rent, last month's rent, and security deposit. They were going to lose the deposit and have nowhere to go. And I was going to let it happen. Jennifer thought I was being too harsh. "You won. You got your money. Maybe it's time to be the bigger person." "The bigger person?" I repeated. "They stole from me. They chose Marcus over me my entire life. And they're not even sorry. They still think they did the right thing." "I know," Jennifer said gently. "But holding on to anger will only hurt you." Maybe she was right. But I wasn't ready to let go yet. I used some of the money to take a week off work and flew to Hawaii. I needed to clear my head and figure out what came next. On the beach in Maui, I finally felt like I could breathe again. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from extended family. My Aunt Carol wrote a long text about Christian forgiveness. My Uncle Jim called me selfish. My cousin Sarah sent a news article about the importance of family bonds. I turned off my phone and watched the waves. For the first time in months, I felt peaceful. When I got back to Seattle, there was a letter waiting at my apartment. From Marcus. It was postmarked from the rehab facility. I almost threw it away without reading it. But curiosity won. I opened it carefully. "Dear Alex. I'm writing this on my 10th day sober. They say I need to make amends to the people I've hurt. You're at the top of that list. I destroyed your inheritance. I know Mom and Dad made the actual decision to sell the house, but it was because of me. Because of my addiction and my choices. I've been a burden on this family for years, and you've paid the price for it. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that I'm trying to change. Really trying this time. I'm working through the steps and facing what I've done. I'm also writing to tell you something nobody else will. You were right to sue. Mom and Dad were wrong. What they did was theft, no matter how they justify it. You deserved that house. Grandma wanted you to have it. And I ruined that. I'm sorry, Alex. I'm so sorry for everything. I know that words mean nothing coming from me. I've said sorry before and then messed up again. But I'm working on being different this time. I'm working on being someone you might not hate someday. Your brother, Marcus." I read the letter 3 times. Part of me wanted to believe him. The bigger part remembered all the other times he'd promised to change. I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. Maybe someday I'd respond. But not yet. Meanwhile, my parents' situation was deteriorating. I heard through my cousin Sarah that they'd lost the apartment deposit and were staying with my Aunt Carol temporarily. My aunt was not happy about it, apparently. She'd told them they could stay 2 weeks maximum. I felt a twinge of something, not quite guilt, but close. Then I remembered my mother's voice on the phone, "Consider this payback for raising you." The twinge disappeared. I started looking at houses. Real houses this time, not money in an account. I wanted what Grandma Helen had wanted for me, a home of my own. I found a craftsman-style house in Ballard with 3 bedrooms, a big backyard, and a view of the Olympics on clear days. It needed work, but that was fine. I'm an engineer. I can fix things. I made an offer. It was accepted. I was going to have the home my grandmother wanted me to have after all. Just not the one she'd left me. The closing was scheduled for 6 weeks out. In that time, my parents' situation went from bad to worse. They'd worn out their welcome at my aunt's house and moved to a cheap motel. My father had found part-time work at a hardware store. My mother was looking for jobs but hadn't found anything yet. They were in their early 60s, with minimal savings and no retirement plan. The house sale was supposed to be their nest egg after paying off Marcus's debt. Now they had nothing. Part of me knew I could help. I had their $340,000 plus my own savings. I could give them enough to get an apartment, get stable. But every time I considered it, I remembered how my mother had screamed at me. How my father had called me selfish. How neither of them had ever apologized. Jennifer invited me to dinner one night. Over pasta, she said, I'm going to say something as your friend, not as a lawyer. You need to make peace with this situation somehow. Either forgive them and help them, or cut them off completely. This middle ground is eating you alive. I have cut them off, I protested. Have you? You're tracking their situation. You know where they're staying and what jobs they're working. That's not cutting them off. That's staying connected while pretending you're not. She was right, and I hated it. I'd won the lawsuit but I hadn't moved on. I was stuck in this angry, bitter place where I couldn't forgive them but couldn't fully let them go either. That night, I pulled out Marcus's letter again and read it one more time. Then I did something I hadn't done in months. I wrote back. Marcus. I got your letter. I don't know if I believe you'll stay sober this time. You've made promises before. But I appreciate that you admitted what you did and that you didn't make excuses. I'm not ready to forgive yet. Maybe I never will be. But I want you to know that I hope you succeed this time. Not for Mom and Dad, not for me, but for you. You deserve a life that's not controlled by addiction. Take care of yourself. Alex. I mailed it the next day before I could change my mind. The closing on my new house went smoothly. I signed papers for an hour, handed over a cashier's check, and received keys to my own home. My first thought was, Grandma would have loved this place. I spent the first night on an air mattress in the empty living room, listening to the house settle around me. It felt right. I hired contractors to handle the major work, new roof, updated electrical, refinished floors. But I did the smaller projects myself on weekends. Painting, landscaping, installing new fixtures. Each improvement felt like building something that was truly mine. 3 months after moving in, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Alex? It's Dad. I didn't hang up, but I didn't say anything either. I'm calling because your mother is in the hospital. She had a heart attack. She's stable now, but it was serious. My stomach dropped. Which hospital? Sacred Heart. In Spokane. We moved up here last month. Found a small place we could afford. I'll think about coming, I said, then hung up. Jennifer drove up with me the next day. I didn't trust myself to go alone. At the hospital, my father looked like he'd aged 10 years. His hair had gone completely gray. He was thinner, more worn down. Thank you for coming, he said quietly. I followed him to my mother's room. She was asleep, monitors beeping steadily. She looked small and fragile in the hospital bed. I'd never thought of my mother as fragile before. A nurse came in to check vitals. Are you family? She asked me. I'm her daughter, I said. The words felt strange after months of estrangement. She's doing much better. The doctors say she can probably go home in a few days if she continues to improve. After the nurse left, my father said, the stress has been hard on her. On both of us. We're living in a studio apartment now. Both working part-time jobs. We're getting by, but just barely. He wasn't asking for money. He was just stating facts. Somehow that made it worse. I'm sorry she had a heart attack, I said. But I'm not sorry about the lawsuit. You stole from me. I know, he said. He looked down at his hands. I know we did. Your mother and I have talked about it a lot these past few months. We were wrong. We thought we were protecting Marcus, but we were really enabling him. And we hurt you in the process. You didn't just hurt me, Dad. You betrayed me. There's a difference. I know, he said again. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that we understand now what we did. My mother woke up while I was still there. Her eyes focused on me slowly. Alex? I'm here, Mom. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. I wanted to stay angry. I wanted to hold on to my righteous fury. But seeing her in that hospital bed, looking so small and scared, something in me cracked open. I know, I said. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was acknowledgement. I stayed for another hour, then told them I needed to get back to Seattle. My father walked me to the elevator. How's Marcus? I asked. Good, actually. He's been sober for 4 months. Got a job at a treatment center helping other addicts. He seems different this time. That's good, I said. And I meant it. In the car, Jennifer asked, how are you feeling? Confused, I admitted. I'm still angry. But I also don't want my mother to die thinking I hate her. Those two things can both be true, Jennifer said gently. I thought about that for the entire drive home. Over the next few weeks, I called to check on my mother's recovery. The conversations were brief and awkward, but they were something. My father always answered. We didn't talk about the lawsuit or the money. We talked about her medications, her diet, her physical therapy. Marcus called me one night. Dad told me you came to the hospital. Thank you for that. How's rehab going? I asked. I'm out now. Living in a sober house and working full-time. It's hard, but good hard, you know? Like I'm finally doing something right. I'm glad, I said. And I was. I know you probably don't believe me, but I really am different this time. I'm going to pay you back someday. Every cent that got lost because of me. Marcus, that would take you years. Then it takes years, he said. I owe you that much. After we hung up, I sat in my living room, in my house, and thought about everything that had happened. My parents had betrayed me. I'd sued them and won. My mother had nearly died. And somehow, we were all still here, damaged but surviving. I didn't know if I'd ever fully forgive them. But maybe forgiveness wasn't the point. Maybe the point was just moving forward. 6 months later, I invited my parents to visit my house. They drove down from Spokane on a Saturday morning. I'd spent the whole week anxious about it, but Jennifer reminded me that I could change my mind at any time. They arrived exactly on time. My father helped my mother out of their old Honda. She was moving slowly, still recovering. They stood in my driveway, looking uncertain. Come in, I said. I gave them the tour. They admired the renovations, the backyard, the way I'd decorated. My mother cried when she saw the photo of Grandma Helen I'd hung in the hallway. She would have loved this place, my mother said softly. She always wanted you to have a real home. I know, I said. We had coffee in the kitchen. The conversation was stilted at first, but gradually became easier. My father told me about his job at the hardware store. My mother talked about starting to volunteer at their church. They asked about my work, my life. Nobody mentioned the lawsuit. Nobody mentioned the money. We were all pretending to be a normal family having a normal visit. And maybe that was enough for now. As they were leaving, my father hugged me awkwardly. Thank you for letting us come. You're welcome, I said. My mother hugged me too, holding on a little longer. I love you, Alex. I know I don't have the right to say that anymore, but I do. I love you too, Mom, I said. And I realized it was true. I was angry and hurt and betrayed, but I still loved them. Those feelings existed together, complicated and messy and real. After they left, I stood in my house, the home I'd built from the ashes of my inheritance, and felt something I hadn't felt in a year, peace. Not happiness, not forgiveness, not reconciliation. Just peace. It wasn't a happy ending. It wasn't a sad ending either. It was just real life, complicated and imperfect and mine. And for now, that was enough.